Okay, attention everybody, and welcome to our first meeting for the Agriculture, Conservation and Natural Resources, otherwise known as the ACNR Committee, for the 2022 session. Sean, could you please take the roll?
Mr. Chair, you have a quorum.
Okay, thank you very much. What I'd like to do is take a list of bills that are going by this week. So I know that Senator Survell had talked to me about 248 as well as 250. Does that sound correct? Sean, does that sound correct? You don't know?
Senator, I don't know.
Okay, why don't we do this? Survell grabbed me as I was walking out of P&E. I'm going to put a star by 250, and I'll hold 248 for right now. Any other bills that need to go by today? He's got, yeah, I thought so, okay. Also send 248 by, and actually, let me do these by a vote. Can I have a vote to take Senate Bill 250 by for the day?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All right. And how about Senate Bill 248?
So moved.
Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, so 248 is by. What else do we have? Okay, well, Hanger's right here. 187.
Same 188, after they waiting on amendments.
Okay, so Senate Bills 187 and 188 go by for the day. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, so 187 and 188. We're rapidly running out of things here. Okay, 292 Maury River. Can I get a motion on that?
So moved.
Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, Senate Bill 292 is by, and what's the other one?
305.
Senate Bill 305. Can I have a motion on that?
So moved.
Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All right, Senate Bill 305 is by for the day.
28, first page.
28, Economic Development Business Ready Sites. What do you want to do with that?
I'll take 5.
Okay, all right. Okay, that's Senate Bill 28, Business Ready Sites Program. All in favor of moving that by for the week, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, all opposed, no. All right, so that is by for the week. So we are down to,
Senate Bill 50 was.
I have one too.
come on, guys. I mean, Senate Bill 50, I don't even see that.
Page 2, top of your second page.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay. Senate Bill 50, are we taking that by for the day? Okay. All in favor of taking that by, say aye.
Aye.
And all opposed, no. All right, Senate Bill 50 goes by. Okay, so,
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
just to continue that, can Senate Bill 146 please go by for the week so the citizen that's initiated that can be here?
Okay, can I have a motion on that?
So moved.
All right, second, Senate Bill 146 by for the day. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. So that's by for the day. So let me just see what we got left. Okay, we got Sunday hunting, Senate Bill 8, Senate Bill 13, Senate Bill 31, Senate Bill 141, Senate Bill 332, Senate Bill 354, Senate Bill 355, and Senate Bill 357, okay? All right, so we're gonna move pretty quickly, although we got at least one that's gonna have some testimony. All right, I see one out-of-towner here, and that's Senator Reeves. Senator Reeves, you want to come forward and present your bill? Oh, I'm sorry, John, you were here first?
John's been here.
I'm sorry. Okay, all right, well,
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee,
go ahead.
Senate Bill 141.
Senate Bill 141.
Let me get a little bit of background. Last year, we had a budget amendment that I put in that do a study of access fees of boat ramps owned and managed by the Department of Wildlife Resources. The amendment passed, and because of that, we had a stakeholders work group on access fees for human-powered crafts. And the recommendation, this came out last October, the recommendation of the workforce, stakeholder workforce work group on access fees for watercrafts made the following recommendation. One, to repeal the existing access fees in order to promote recreational usage of waterways by all Virginians wanting to participate in outdoor activities that enrich the overall health and well-being of Virginians. And so that's what the bill does. And I have with me Ryan Brown, Executive Director of the Department of Wildlife Resources, to say a word or two.
Okay, Brian, you want to come forward?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Ryan Brown from the Department of Wildlife Resources. We don't have a formal position on the bill, but I think the senator did a good job explaining the genesis of it. The problem sought to be addressed was funding for boat ramps in the Commonwealth of Virginia. As the committee knows, the department's self-funded, and so the money has to be raised in order to do maintenance or put in new access points that the public might enjoy. And a couple of years ago, the General Assembly did pass authorization for us to enact a fee in order to fund those efforts before a fee was ever implemented. The budget amendment that you heard of called for a stakeholder group to take a look at the issue. We had a broad variety of stakeholders, all very good participants. Consensus recommendation of that group was to repeal the fee authority and instead look to fully fund watercraft sales and use transfer monies that are to come to the department anyway by code. They just haven't historically made it that way. And so there's a budget component to this as well that's in the introduced budget. And that's what the stakeholder group recommended, and I would thank all of them for their service. It was a great group, a lot of constructive discussion about how do we all reach our mutual goals. And in this case, the answer was not establish a new fee, which is something I think we all
Okay,
appreciate.
Senator Marston.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Brown, did you break even on this with the new funding strategy? Are you losing money on this? Do you have any idea?
Actually gaining,
Gaining.
Senator,
Oh.
yes.
Oh, magic words for an state
Yeah,
agency.
now those funds are designated to go to multiple purposes, but the upside of just seeking simple transfer of money that is already collected would be much greater than
Great,
what
thank
we'd
you.
expect to realize.
Senator Morrissey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I see on lines 25 and 38 what the penalties are. That's spelled out, but what is the fee? Or does it vary from boat ramp to boat ramp?
The fee was never established, so the answer is there is no fee. What there was an authorization to enact a fee that never went into place.
I
Now,
see.
yeah.
Okay, thank you for that.
Okay, anybody else? All right, quick question. You all are still looking, you're going to put in a boat ramp down there by Falls Cave State Park? You know what I'm talking about?
If you say so, Mr. Chairman.
Well, I'm just asking, just asking, okay. All right, anybody from the public want to comment on this bill, Senate Bill 141?
I'd like to ask Anna Killius of the James River Association.
Sure, Anna, come forward.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, we were one of the members of that stakeholder group. We very much appreciated that opportunity to have that full conversation about the costs and benefits of such a fee. We do hope that the General Assembly sees fit to move forward with that budget amendment that fully fund, or budget language that fully funds DWR with what they are entitled to from those transfer funds. And we hope that you support this bill today to remove this authority. Thank you.
Okay, thanks,
I
Anna.
might say she boats down the rapids of the James River.
Okay.
How many people have done that?
We're going to get to the James River. Okay.
For those attendees in the Zoom room who would like to speak in support of the bill, please raise your hand electronically now. Mr. Chair, we have one attendee who would like to speak.
Okay, please go ahead.
Charles Ware, would you please unmute and begin your testimony? Charles Ware, are you there? Would you mind unmuting and begin your testimony?
Waiting to get an input from Charles Ware, and then we'll make a motion. He disappeared. Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I move the bill be reported
Mr. Chair, this one is bound for finance.
Okay.
and re-referred to Senate Finance.
Okay, the bill, there's a motion to report and refer the bill to Senate Finance. Open the roll, please.
Ayes 13, noes 0.
Okay, all right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the committee.
All right, good work, John. Okay. The next guest patron we have, I believe, is Senator Reeves. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have an amendment in the nature of substitute, if I can get that before the committee.
Okay. I have a motion to, okay, all in favor say aye. Aye. All right, distribute the substitute, please.
Mr. Chairman, also
Hold
there
on,
should
hold
be
on a
somebody,
Do we have a substitute here?
she's releasing it, I think. Lisa's
okay.
releasing it.
What's the number on this bill?
332, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
I should have a witness online as well, but,
Oh, he's-
what?
Senator, what's the name of your witness?
Dwayne Adams. Okay to proceed, Mr. Chairman?
Hold on one second. Has anybody pulled this up yet? Okay, Senate Bill 332, I'm still getting to it, but go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, this is a pretty simple bill. I represent Lake Anna, and under COVID, Lake Anna has seen a boom, which is a phenomenal thing. It's also been growth to a couple of new businesses where they rent jet skis and boats and those sort of things. But if you are an avid boater or a boat owner, and you're on the water all the time, you have to take a pretty extensive course, online course that takes a lot of hours. If you're renting, you just have to do a checklist. And Mr. Adams started one of these rental places, has done phenomenally well, but what he found out was he was renting boats to people who had no business being on the water or had no clue really how to operate it. And so what this does is it allows DWR the ability to promulgate regulations for a shorter course, kind of a short course, online and in person, like a 10, 15-minute class at least to get some boater knowledge. And on line 25 and 26 of the substitute, it says, so long as a person has completed an online or in-person abbreviated short boater safety course approved by the department. So it allows them to promulgate regulations to kind of help fill that need. And if you'd like to, Mr. Adams would like to speak to the issue specifically.
I'm still drowning in 1 foot of water here. Okay, Mr. Adams, do you have a witness?
Yes.
Oh, he's online.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'd also like to thank Senator Reeves for carrying this bill. And he did a good job of summing it up. We own the largest boat and jet ski rental company here on Lake Anna. And in conversation with other rental companies, not only here, but across the Commonwealth, it seems a little backwards. If you own a boat or a jet ski, you're required to either have a boater's license or take courses in safety. If you rent a boat or jet ski, the only thing that's required currently by regulation is a dockside checklist, which we do, and every legitimate boat company does that. What we quickly found out that wasn't sufficient. In the 3 years we've been in business, we require our boaters and jet ski operators, renters, to take a third-party online course, 15 minutes, 10 questions. You do have to pass. There is no cost to our clients, but it gives them good basic boater information and safety information. And we've had some conversations with the Department of Wildlife Resources. I can't speak for them, but they've indicated that they would be willing to look at looking at adding that regulation, so that I think the goal here is that we all put a safer product on the public waterways, and that's people who aren't going to hurt themselves or hurt someone else. One of the I hate to say there's a silver lining to COVID and anything, but one of the things that we have seen is that more people are social distancing and recreating outside in the outdoors. So that is a positive that's getting people out. We just want to keep them safe. And I think certainly here at Lake Anna, we have 7 rental companies. None of them all of them know that this bill is coming up and have expressed support in the Department of Wildlife Resources, looking at how we can make it safer on the public waterways. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, that's the bill.
Okay, any questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Obenshain.
so, Senator Reeves, I gather that Mr. Adams offers this class already,
He does of his own.
and that there's no prohibition against rental companies offering these classes.
Correct.
It's in the best interest of a rental company who's entrusting a boat, an expensive boat, to renters to require some familiarity with rules of safety and the general operation of that machinery. Wouldn't you agree?
I would.
And don't you think that it results in lower insurance rates if they do that?
I couldn't say, depending on the insurance company.
Do you believe that all of the, wait a second, you are an insurance company, aren't you?
I don't insure those types of rental boats because it's too risky. Because we're allowing people to drive boats without any training.
Unless the rental company requires
It's
training.
a risk assumption.
And do all 7 of those companies that are renting boats on Lake Anna require some measure of training voluntarily?
I couldn't tell you. Maybe Mr. Adams could tell you.
Thank you.
Senator Overchain, we are the only one that requires that training. Everybody's required to do the dockside checklist. The Department of Wildlife Resources requires that. I'm also in the insurance business. It does not result in a lower insurance premium, liability premium for us. It simply is a matter of public safety.
Okay, any other questions? Senator Marsden.
Chairman, for Mr. Adams, if I could? Mr. Adams?
Yes, sir.
Are you there?
Yes, sir.
This isn't just about your equipment. This is also about injury, safety to people who might operate the equipment where it doesn't hurt the equipment but could hurt them. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct. Our equipment is fully insured. We just want to make sure that there are no injuries on the public waterways, and it's about the safety of the public.
Thank you.
Okay, any other witnesses in person, or how about online?
For those attendees in the Zoom room who would like to speak in support of the bill, please raise your hand electronically now. For those who would like to speak in opposition to the bill, please raise your hand electronically now. Mr. Chairman, there is no hands raised at the moment.
Let me ask a couple questions. Does the department already have a checklist or an online boating course? Have they already done this?
They have one if you're a boat owner.
Right.
That you have to take this, Senator Stewart might know, but it takes like 5 or 6 hours. So there's no abbreviated course, there's just a checklist.
Okay, so for the folks that are gonna rent a boat, let's say I'm at the beach or I'm at Lake Anna or Smith Mountain and I wanna rent a boat. I mean, how long are we talking about? Is this gonna take 20 minutes, an hour?
The checklist?
Yeah.
3 minutes?
What we're about to vote on now, this would take 30 minutes?
I would leave that to the regulatory bureau that's gonna make that up, but I would think reasonable is probably 15, 20 minutes to take a test to do something like that.
Okay. Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Senator Marsden.
This is something similar that they do in rafting companies in parts of the eastern United States that, require that 15, 20-minute film to make sure that people know what they're doing and take proper direction from the guides and that kind of thing. So it's pretty similar to that.
Is there a fiscal impact? Any fiscal impact? No.
I think the cost, and DWR's here, they can speak to it, but I think they can already promulgate that this is gonna allow them to do that. I mean, it's just a matter of them figuring out what is a good course and timeframe.
Okay, all right. Yeah, one more question. Senator Stewart.
Senator Reeves, I mean, if you're going to promulgate a separate regulation for rental boat I mean, why don't you just take the class?
Um,
If you know the stuff, it takes 2 hours. If you don't, it takes a little bit longer. And I'm guessing for those who don't know it, they probably should know it. So why are we going to do separate regulations? I'm just curious. If you're going to take the class, I hate it. I think it's the worst thing we ever did. But if you're going to make people do it, you know, why not just take the class instead of making 2 different classes now?
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Reeves, and I got some more commentary here. Go ahead.
yes, sir. I would tell you that you would put Mr. Adams out of business because with Lake Anna, people sometimes show up and say, hey, let's rent a boat today.
Right.
But yet they're not boat owners. So they don't have a vested interest in it. They just want to rent it, just like you want to rent an RV and they tell you, hey, when you hook it up to your truck, you got to put the chains on, you got to hook the lights. There's a checklist for that. And if you drive a truck with a trailer, it's totally different than driving a normal vehicle. So there's some things that you learn from that. So I would just say it's just probably infeasible.
Okay, I had Senator Mason.
Mr. Chairman, I would just say that I just took the class and boy, did I need it. I don't know beans, but it took a long time. It took 5 or 6 hours. It's timed out. You have to do so much time. So you don't need to know what you call the left, right, front, and back of a boat, but it'd be a good idea to know which side to approach and how to pass, how not to pass. I mean, so I just took it. It would take a very long time. You could shorten it down, but I probably need to take it again, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All right, anybody else? All right, Chair will entertain a motion. Senator Morrissey.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Senator Reeves, I've been boating for over half a century, from the lower Wicomico to the James River. And I think that course that people have to take now, which one of my colleagues just said is 2 hours, it's cumbersome, but probably beneficial. Here's what I'm trying to figure out. When I listened to the person that spoke, a lot of people will come down, you know where Rockets Landing is.
Of course.
They do the same thing. They'll go there and they're sitting up there and they're having a sandwich and it's a beautiful day and they look down and they see boats for rent and they decided, like that, in a nanosecond, I want to go out and operate a boat, having no clue how to operate a boat safely. And they'll go down there. My question is first, you would agree there is no requirement that the harbor master who's leasing those boats has to rent it to an individual. Is that correct?
No, that is correct. You wouldn't want to rent one to somebody who's going to get a BWI, right?
Second question, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Mr.
Right now, in addition to the gentleman that spoke, are these other harbor masters, that's what they call them, folks that are letting boats, are they making the individual who suddenly is desirous of going out on the boat take a course, or is he the only one that is doing it?
As he stated, he's the only one on Lake Anna doing it out of the proprietors that are leasing or renting boats.
Final question.
Go ahead, Senator Morrissey.
If the individual says, I'm not going to take that 10-minute course or 15-minute course online, 10 questions, does the gentleman that spoke earlier say, okay, if you won't take it, I'm not leasing you a boat?
Mr. Adams will not lease you a boat unless you take the course.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All right, we have a motion. Senator Obenchain.
And let me just very briefly say this, and I respect what the senator is trying to do, but here's my concern is, and I've taken the class. I've been operating boats for, all of my adult life as well. I took the class probably 4 years ago because I had a boating safety certificate that I'd gotten probably 25 years ago, and I couldn't find it. So I had to take the thing over again. It was about 5 hours, and you can't compress it. It is, time so that even if you know the answer, you've got to stay on the page for a certain amount of time, so you can't just skim right through the test. Under this, I mean, and I don't question the goodwill of the great people in the department, but they could decide that abbreviated means 15 minutes less than the 5 hours. And I predict that this could very well be counterproductive to the goals of the patron. I want safe boaters on Smith Mountain Lake where, I spend time. I want safe boaters on Lake Anna. But, I think this is so open-ended that it may very well kill the rental business in certain areas of Virginia, notwithstanding the intentions of the patron.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Clerk will open the roll. This is to report.
Ayes 8, noes 5.
Ayes 8, noes 5. The bill reports.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. I don't have any other non-committee members. So let me get to, Dave, you want to do yours, Senate Bill 31? Okay, Senate Bill 31, which is Virginia Land Conservation Foundation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have a substitute.
Okay, I have a motion. Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, substitute is adopted, if that can be distributed.
Mr. Chairman, the substitute's been released online.
Okay. And this is Senate Bill 31, by the way.
Mr. Chairman, how do you find that substitute online?
You know what? I don't know why it's taking forever. All right, Senator, whenever you're ready.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, this bill makes a number of relatively small changes to what is fundamentally a successful program. The Virginia Land Conservation Foundation has provided grants for over 20 years protecting working and natural lands across the Commonwealth. The bill increases the funding target for the program and makes it more accessible for grantees to do projects. So here's 5 quick things that it does. The code currently contains a formula to determine a recommended appropriation amount for the VLCF. That's the Virginia Land Conservation Foundation. Instead, this legislation is explicit that the target amount for the program is $40 million. The reason for this is the formula is outdated and difficult to interpret. The demonstrated need for this program far exceeds $40 million a year. With regard to tribal participation, the bill gives Virginia tribes a larger role in the program by adding a board member to represent tribes and by making tribes eligible for grants. And the reason for this is the VLCF can help the tribes restore their homelands and conserve them for future generations. Third, it adds flexibility to requirements for funded projects. Currently, an easement acquired with VLCF dollars must be co-held by a public body, and any land acquired must also be protected by a conservation easement held by a public body. The bill would allow accredited land trusts to hold easements without a co-holder and would allow VLCF to accept a reversionary interest rather than requiring a publicly held easement. And the reason for this is there's a need for additional avenues for ensuring that VLCF projects protect land in perpetuity. Many public bodies do not consider co-holding to be an effective use of their limited resources. In addition, there was no accreditation mechanism for land trusts when the co-holding requirement was adopted. The board is also to adopt goals and place greater emphasis on meeting needs of underserved communities. It requires that the board's annual report to include goals and funding needs for each type of land eligible for grants as well as underserved communities. The reason for this, to provide better information annually that the General Assembly can use to make funding decisions similar to what exists now for water quality programs that fund stormwater projects and agricultural best management practices. And lastly, in the pre-application process, it removes a provision adopted in 2019 that required VLCF to hold grant rounds in advance of appropriations being made. The reason for this, the agency has been unable to implement this provision as intended. So those are the 5 things that the bill does, and I believe we have some folks here who I'll take questions, but we have some folks here to speak in favor.
Okay, why don't we do this? Whoever's here in favor, go ahead and step right up, and Sean, if you want to get them teed up online also.
For those who would like to speak in favor of the bill, please raise your hand electronically now.
Okay, wonderful. Why don't you come forward and just state your name and whether or not you support the bill, and just give us some background. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee. I'm Chief Ann Richardson of the Rappahannock Tribe.
Great.
And I'm here to support this bill. We had an experience with it last year where we went through about 6 months of preparing a package for this, and also advocated that the General Assembly increase the amount of funding so that tribes can qualify for it, only to find the day before it was due that we were not included in it. And so I just ask you to support this bill so that the tribes in Virginia are able to restore important tribal lands back to those communities. One that we have worked on is Fawn's Cliffs, to protect it from development. And we have found sacred objects, so we know that that was used for religious practices. And we want to continue that.
Great.
And
Which county is that in, by the way?
That's in Richmond County.
Richmond, okay.
Yes. And I also have Chief Adams with me.
Chief, come forward.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Frank Adams, Chief of the Upper Mattaponi Tribe in King William County, Virginia, which is home to three Indian tribes located in King William County. That's the Monkey, the Mattaponi Reservation, and the Upper Mattaponi Tribe. And I concur with Chief Ann Richardson of the Rappahannocks, is that this is a cumbersome process the way it's written, and I think the tribes are well aware of their cultural properties and their historical lands from back in the future. So we would appreciate a favorable ruling on this.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Nikki?
Hello, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Nikki Robner. I'm with the Nature Conservancy. We've worked with a lot of organizations on this legislation, and we support it. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Chris Lane with the Virginia League of Conservation Voters, and for the reasons articulated by the patrons, the tribes, and the Nature Conservancy, we too support this legislation.
Great. Thank you. All right. Anybody else? Anybody online, Sean? Go ahead.
There's two.
Go for it.
Dan Holmes, please unmute and begin your testimony. Pat Calvert, you will be next.
Chairman, members of the committee, thank you for this opportunity to support Senate Bill 31. I concur with the other speakers on the bill and hope that you'll find it in your favor. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, this is Pat Calvert with Virginia Conservation Network. Our legislative committee voted on this yesterday in full support. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pat. Okay. Senator?
Mr. Chairman, if I might, also we negotiated this substitute with the Farm Bureau and the Ag Council, and so
Okay.
they're on board.
All right. 1 second. Do we have any opposition, either in person or online?
For those attendees in the Zoom room who would like to speak in opposition to the bill, please raise your hand electronically now. Mr. Chair, there are no hands raised at this moment.
Okay. Okay, this goes to finance. Okay. Chair will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir. Senator Hanger.
Well, I'll make a motion, but I just wanted to observe, I did choose to co-patron this with Senator Marsden. And Nikki, who just testified, actually 20 years ago, I carried the legislation setting up the Virginia Land Conservation Foundation, and she was in legislative services and drew the statute.
Okay.
The 40 million in there would be questionable, except it's just recommended. And the budget, of course, will determine what actually in those allocations will be determined.
What's in the introduced budget? How much?
It's a much smaller amount, but it's like 12.5 million, I believe, something like that.
Not sure.
Did he put 40 in? Did he put 40 in?
Okay, all right.
Okay.
All right, so we have a motion and a second to report the bill and refer to finance. Clerk, open the roll.
Ayes 11, noes 2.
Okay, all right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, working our way through here. Senator Hashmi is not here. Senator Stewart, you have a whole sequence here, 354, 55, and 57.
No.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Mr. Chairman, if I may start with Senate Bill 357.
Okay. Senate Bill 357.
And, Mr. Chairman, I don't know if everybody's aware, but the Virginia Port Authority has a waterway maintenance grant program, and basically it allows localities to get grants for certain projects in their waterways, but the locality has to own the land. And in Westmoreland County, they have a subdivision called Cabin Point, and they actually own the bottom of the creek in there, and I won't get into King's grants and all that because it's fairly complicated. But they have a sanitation authority through the county such that the subdivision leases all of the land under a long-term lease with the county in the sanitation district, so it actually becomes an arm of the municipality, if you will. And those sorts of arrangements are all around the Commonwealth in areas like Senator Lewis and Senator Mason and others that we live in Tidewater, Virginia. And so what this would allow is for those situations to participate for that grant as long as it's under a long-term lease and the locality didn't have to own it. Hopefully I explained that coherently, and I'll be happy to try to answer any questions.
Okay. Any questions for Senator Stewart from the panel? Do you have anyone to speak in support?
Somebody left a ThinkPad up here.
Senator, you got anybody to speak in support?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Belongs there.
Anyone here to speak on this bill, Senate Bill 357, either for or against?
For those attendees online who would like to speak in support of the bill, please raise your hand electronically now. For those attendees in the Zoom room who would like to speak in opposition to the bill, please raise your hand electronically now. Mr. Chair, there are no hands raised at this moment.
All right. Seems like a lot of interest. Okay.
That can be a good thing, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, it might be a good thing in this case. Okay, we've had a motion to report the bill. Do I have a second? Second. All right, we've got a motion and a second, and this is for dredging.
Correct. Well, that's one example, yes, sir.
Okay, all right. All right, motion is to report the bill. Does that have to go to finance, Sean?
No, Mr. Chair, it does
Nope.
not.
Okay, motion is to report the bill. Clerk will open the roll.
Ayes 14, noes 0.
Ayes 14, noes 0. Before we move on to the next bill, Senator Stewart, Sean, you wanted to go back and pick something up on 31?
No, Mr. Chair, I'm all set.
You're good, okay, all right.
Mr. Chairman, while you're at a pause, if we could reconsider Senate Bill 332, please.
Was that votes? Okay, Senate Bill 332, I have a motion to reconsider. Is there a second? Second. Okay, all in favor of reconsidering 332, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Okay, 332 is back in front of us.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
In consultation with my patron from the lake, he'd asked me if we could strike the bill, so I would.
Seriously?
Yes, sir.
Wow. He's never met him.
Okay, all right. We've had a request to strike the bill. Do I have a motion? Okay, got a second to strike the bill. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you,
All right.
committee.
See you. Okay.
Should we have a roll call vote, Mr. Chair?
We need a roll call vote. Okay, this is to strike the bill.
Can I vote from here?
No, we're keeping this. You meant.
Thank you.
Man, that's some power. Okay.
Ayes 14, noes 0.
Okay, ayes 14, no 0. Boating freedom remains at Lake Anna. Okay. All right, Senator Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senate Bill 355.
Yeah. It's coming up very quickly.
I'll ask. Yeah.
355.
Can you explain them too?
Well, the problem is no, the 354 is the one she wants to come back for. I'll go 355 now. Okay, 355, go ahead.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. In 2021, the General Assembly passed Senator Hanger's and Delegate Lopez's bills which created the Enhanced Nutrient Removal Certainty Program. And that program mandated and prioritized certain wastewater treatment plants to undertake advanced technology upgrades to reduce nitrogen, phosphorus, and to try to help us meet our TMDLs under the 2025 consent decree. There are currently 13 on, and what this bill does is it adds the city of Fredericksburg's wastewater treatment plant. They are undertaking a massive project in the city, and full disclosure, I don't even represent the city, but I will tell you how this sort of works. When Bill Howell was the Speaker of the House, and he didn't represent the city, when they asked him to carry legislation, he said, go get Richard, he'll do it. And so I've always done that for them, and so that's why I'm carrying this now. We also asked Governor Northam to put a substantial amount of money in the budget for them, which they did. They've had a lot of difficulty with that system over the years, and I think they're looking at something like $90 million to fix it, and that's a very small city, but they are undertaking that project, and they want to get it done expeditiously. And so this bill would add them to that list of those folks, and they want to be added, Mr. Chairman. Okay. There are also a couple of amendments, and if, I will try my best to explain them. If not, I'll have to phone a friend who actually is more intelligent than I am about this. The two amendments, gosh, Melissa, I don't have the line version of it.
Mr. Chairman, I can read them.
Thank you. If you could, on the lines, because I can't tell where they go in.
On line 297 of the bill, which is on page 5, in the table, it lists the new Fredericksburg wastewater treatment facility. It would change that language to expand with nutrient removal technology of 0.3 milligrams per liter total nitrogen and 0.22 milligrams total phosphorus.
And so that amendment, what that does, it is what would be allowable under the new DEQ certificate. So it's a little bit less than what they could discharge now, just to explain that amendment. And if I may, Mr. Chairman, I'll wait for both of them.
Okay.
And Mr. Chairman, the second amendment would add an enactment clause at the very end of the bill, so after line 376, that says that the nutrient technology requirements that we just reported would apply on an annual basis and take effect once the expanded Fredericksburg wastewater treatment facility receives a certificate to operate.
Thank you, Melissa. And again, that just clarifies that this is applicable to the new certificate under which they would discharge under the new plan. So, Mr. Chairman, that's the bill. I would move that those amendments be adopted in a block.
All right. We've got a motion and a second to adopt the aforementioned amendments in a block. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Okay, amendment passes. All right.
And that's my bill, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Senator Stewart, where exactly, what line do we add Fredericksburg to this list of localities?
I don't know because I don't have a line version. I apologize.
109. Is it 109?
Melissa,
I'm
can
sorry,
you help
Mr.
with
Chairman,
that?
what was the question?
The line of the bill
Where we
it
actually add Fredericksburg, it looks like line 109, City of Fredericksburg.
They're added up in the master list, but where the changes about the new priority projects are on beginning on line 297.
Okay, but 109 actually has City of Fredericksburg articulated.
It does, and I believe that that is just a large master list. Not all the projects on that list are priority.
I got
So it's
it.
adding it to that list and then making it on a priority list further down in the bill.
And then the second question is, if we add Fredericksburg to this list, what does that mean? Does that mean we have to give them state funding? Does that mean they have to run this cost through their wastewater system? What does it mean?
Means they're gonna get some help.
Okay, you got to phone a friend
Means
known
they're
as
gonna get some help, Mr.
Preston Bryant.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Preston Bryant from McGuire was consulting on behalf of the city of Fredericksburg. Yes, this mandates that they would have to undertake this technology, that it would be on the priority list. They're already eligible to apply for a WQF grant just like anybody else. But it also mandates that they shall get this work done by January of 2026, which advances, at least from the wastewater sector's perspective, it advances the wastewater sector's movement toward the Bay's 2025 goals.
Okay, and who's going to pay for it?
This mandates. So it's a little over a $90 million project. They are appropriating well more than 2/3, and so they can. The city is. Okay. So they can apply just like anybody else can for WQIF. This prioritizes them a little bit.
Okay. Any questions? Senator Morrissey.
Mr. Bryant, good to see you again. Is there some type of match that the city has to make in order to participate, once they are eligible, which is the gist of the senator's bill? Is there some type of matching that goes on between the government and the city?
Yes, sir. In the WQIF grant application, there is a somewhat complicated formula that takes into account a locality's ability to pay and MHI and various other factors, and then DEQ arrives at a local match requirement. There are others here who can speak.
Do you know what that is?
I don't know. I don't know that they have actually applied for I think their grant application is in process, so I have not seen those figures.
Final question.
Okay. Senator Morrissey.
I know for Richmond, there's been a 50-50 match, 50 million, 50 million, then 100 million, then 100 million. Is that what you anticipate that the match is, 50-50? I'm trying to determine how much skin the locality has in the game.
Again, it depends on local ability to pay, and I don't know what the formula might be or what it might spit out. Don't confuse this WQIF grant application with, say, Richmond CSO funding.
Right, okay.
That's more, a little bit outside of normal WQIF formula.
All right, thank you for that.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Hanger.
Thank you. As you're aware, last session, this was negotiated for the enhanced nutrient removal, and Fredericksburg was interested then, but wasn't quite ready to be a part of the original group.
That's right.
But this will allow them to be a part of that package, and as Senator Stewart mentioned there, the governor did put the state share in. The local government will have to come up with their match. In total, it was going to obligate the state to about $400 million worth of funding, which we've already put in about $150 million, and the localities about $500 to $600 million. So it's a larger hit on local governments to meet this requirement. So
And that's not just for Fredericksburg. That's for a bunch of.
Right, it's for all
He says
that list.
400 million, that's for a bunch of localities.
The original 13, it was about $800 million worth of projects.
Okay.
$300 million from the state, $500 million collectively from the various localities.
Okay.
Ratepayers.
All right. Anybody else, Senator Stewart, anyone else besides Preston Bryant?
I don't know.
Oh, I see somebody.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Peggy Sanner, Chesapeake Bay Foundation. Just want to add my praise for this bill, praise for the effort that has brought us to the present, both in last year's effort that Senator Hanger mentioned, Senator Stewart mentioned. This is a big deal. This is a very successful sector in achieving the goals that we need to reach for the Chesapeake Bay by 2025. So we certainly support this effort. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Peggy. Anybody else? Sean, go ahead.
For those attendees in the Zoom room who would like to speak in support of the bill, please raise your hand electronically now.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Chris Lane with the Virginia League of Conservation Voters. We'd like to thank the patron, the City of Fredericksburg and the Commonwealth for their commitment and their investment in water quality throughout the Chesapeake Bay watershed. And we laud this attempt to clean up the Rappahannock and to achieve some more stringent phosphorus and nitrogen targets. And thank you very much. We support this bill.
Thank you, Chris. Okay. Anybody else? Anybody online?
Mr. Chairman, there's one
Adam
person who would
Lynch.
like to speak.
Adam, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Adam Lynch, speaking on behalf of Friends of the Rappahannock. Wastewater improvements in the city of Fredericksburg discharge into the Rappahannock River, and this funding will really go a long way toward meeting our goals and the goals of the Chesapeake Bay program. Thank you so much for your support for this bill.
Great. Okay. Anybody else? Anybody here to speak in opposition, either in live or on the internet?
For those attendees in the Zoom room who would like to speak in opposition to the bill, please raise your hand electronically now. Mr. Chairman, there are no hands raised at this moment.
Okay, looks like we're moving down the tracks. Got a motion? Do I have a second? Okay. Okay, we have a motion and a second to report and refer to Senate Finance. Clerk, open the roll.
Thank you, Preston. Thank you. Senator July, Senator Hafford.
Ayes 15, no 0.
Okay, 15-0, the bill reports and refers to Senate Finance. Okay, Senator Stewart, last one.
Thank you,
354.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Senate Bill 354. Mr. Chairman, you all will recall that a couple years ago, I brought a bill to start trying to clean up the James River. You all helped me a great deal with doing that with the Potomac River. And if you remember when we did that with the Potomac River in Alexandria, a lot of people thought I was being difficult. They thought I was pushing too hard. But it was interesting. Senator Searle sent me something, I think it was this summer, an article, and Alexandria actually beat their deadlines. They beat their deadlines that we set for them, and they were only dumping 300 million gallons of sewage in the Potomac River a year. I say only 300 million gallons of raw sewage into the Potomac River. The city of Richmond has started. We started them down that track, and they are proceeding. But even last year, in 2021, by their own reporting, they dumped 2 billion, and that's billion with a B, gallons of raw sewage into the James River. And now, in my mind, that's a public health emergency. And it's interesting because I don't represent the city of Richmond, but as a result of bringing this bill a couple years ago, I get a lot of calls from people in the city of Richmond and reaching out to my office. And they literally say that when they're trying to use the James River, there is human feces floating in it around them. It really is a health emergency for these folks in this region. And I'm not trying to beat up on Richmond. It is a massive project, a $1 billion project. The Governor Northam, I think in total has allocated about $150 million, and they're going to have to match it with the $150 million. They've got some ARPA money that they've also put. So I think they're at the $350 million range, and we're at the planning purpose. But what this bill does is it moves up the timeline. And I think we have to move up the timeline because we can't continue to dump 2 billion. And those, I mean, that's just hard for me to wrap my head around. 2 billion gallons of raw sewage a year into the James in the year 2022. We have got to tighten this timeline, and we've got to continue to apply pressure. And when I say apply pressure, what I mean is this. I want the city of Richmond to make this their top priority. The city of Alexandria did, and they beat their timeline by making it a top priority. And so the city of Richmond needs to do the same thing. And so I hope that you all will support this bill. It is a difficult bill, and I know some folks who represent Richmond, it makes it difficult for them, but that's why you have outsiders who want to help in certain areas. And, you know, remember, some of us represent downstream, and our constituents don't want to live in that stuff. So thank you. I'll try to answer any questions.
All right, I got Senator Favola. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Senator Stewart, I have a general question. I know this is in statute, and you obviously have created a more ambitious schedule. So if the city of Richmond could not meet this schedule, they would have to come back and get the statute amended and demonstrate why they couldn't meet it? I mean, I want them to meet it, but there may be mitigating circumstances. There may be something that they can't control, which would prohibit them from meeting this schedule. What would happen?
I would carry the bill for them. And this is the same discussion we had with the city of Alexandria. If they genuinely undertook this in good faith and tried their best, and because of things beyond their control were unable to do this, I told them I would carry the bill for them to get them an extension or anything. And I say the same thing to the city of Richmond. I would do that. I'm not trying to place an unreasonable, unrealistic burden on them. This is a very achievable timeline.
Mr. Chairman.
That's Senator Favola.
A follow-up question. Under this time frame, I mean, you mentioned some state money, you mentioned the flow of federal money, the rescue, the Federal Rescue Act. But I would expect city money would also be needed to achieve this. Am I wrong?
I would expect.
So they would have to balance how much city money is needed to meet this goal?
Mr. Chairman, I don't anticipate the state is going to abandon them at this point. Now, there's some who don't think the state should pay for this, but, you know, I remind them when we come to Richmond and visit the Capitol for 2 months every year, we use the bathroom. So why shouldn't we all pay for it? I'm not saying put it all on the city, but certainly the city's got to have skin in the game. And I think we have all been, the money has started to flow already.
Well, I was going to say, didn't we have at least 150 million in ARPA money set
Correct.
aside for this CSO?
Governor Northam has thus far allocated 150 million.
Right, from the ARPA.
And then
federal.
the city has to match that. And then the city got some ARPA money as well outside of that.
Right.
I think they're at about 350 million. And that really is just the start.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Favola.
Follow-up question. What is the total price tag for this?
They're talking north of $1 billion is their best estimate now.
Jesus.
You know, it's a big project. It's a big project. It's a big project. Yeah.
Yeah, no, everybody wants this to happen. I'm just trying to figure out the
Okay.
time frame.
All right. Senator Morrissey, and I know I've got Senator Hashmi. Why don't I get Senator Hashmi and then Morrissey? Senator Hashmi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Senator Stewart, for bringing the bill. And I know how I appreciate the passion you have. I think we all agree that this is a very, very serious, critical concern for all of us in the Commonwealth. And certainly we want to see this resolved. We want to make sure that we do it right. I am, I represent a good part of the city of Richmond, and the city is working hard to address this issue. One of the concerns, of course, is the aging structures that we have. These are systems that were built in the 1800s, and many of them are now very require careful and thoughtful process in order to address the issues. We have a supply chain crisis. We've got workforce crisis as well. So those are some of the concerns. And especially if we're thinking about speeding up the timeline by 5 years. I was curious, you brought the bill in 2020, and we began to really focus on this in the city. The city has had 2 years now. Do you have concern or evidence that the city has not taken action in these past 2 years? Has it failed to meet the timelines, the goals that will incrementally lead us to addressing this by the original date, which is 2035? What is the concern that is really ramping up this process by 5 years now?
Senator Hashmi, the concern I have as an advocate of clean water and somebody who uses the Chesapeake Bay and fishes in it and water skis in it, and my children do as well, that in 2021, the year after I originally brought this bill, they dumped another 2 billion gallons of raw sewage in the river. That's my concern. And I can tell you uncategorically that if I had not brought the bill the year before, this issue would have never come up. And they would have just continued right on down the road, and nobody would have ever thought about it or talked about it or done anything about it. And it is only if we as a General Assembly take this issue very seriously and convince the city of Richmond that they need to take it very seriously and make it a top priority that we're going to get anything done. And that's just the plain truth.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just, do we have any evidence that they are not taking it as a top priority? Are they not doing what we asked them to do in these past 2 years?
I mean, my evidence is 2 billion gallons of raw sewage in the James River last year alone, since we brought the bill. I don't know any other way to answer the question. To me, to dump 2 billion gallons of raw sewage into a river is, I mean, that is a public health emergency. How can the citizens of Richmond be expected to suffer through that sort of thing and it not be a top priority, and we all not be behind this going, we've got to get this cleaned up as quickly as possible? I mean, I think 2030 is too long. I mean, that's another 8 years. That's potentially another 16 billion gallons, which just, I can't even get my head around those numbers.
All right, let me intervene here. What is the point source for all of this raw sewage? Is there anybody here from Richmond Public Works? I mean, right here. Can you step forward, sir?
What happens is this is a combined sewer overflow.
Okay.
So when you have any sort of rain,
right,
it overwhelms the system and everything just flushes right into the river. And it's nothing they can do about it. And so the only thing you can do is you build capacity to contain that so that it can be treated, and then the clean effluent is released. And it means big storage tanks, essentially.
Are you here from the city of Richmond, sir?
Yes, sir.
Why don't you come on forward and tell us who you are?
Mr. Chairman and members, thank you. I'm Bob Steidel. I'm the Deputy Chief Administrative Officer for the City of Richmond, and I was a Director of Public Utilities for about 10 years in my 20-year service to the City of Richmond. So I'm quite aware of this issue. I'd be happy to start with questions, or I can provide you some
Why don't
background.
you just tell us, what is tell us about the infrastructure at work here, what's, the CSO issue. Why don't you just give us some background?
Sure. Richmond, of course, has been around for a very long time. My colleagues, and there were colleagues that did my job 200 years ago. They knew that sanitation had to take waste out of the city and put it in the river. That's how people stayed healthy in the cities of the 1800s. However, obviously, that's not what we want today. So we're in the process of rebuilding the downtown section of the city of Richmond. It's about 19 square miles, 950 miles of pipe. It includes part of Henrico County, part of Richmond County. So we have to rebuild all that to capture what they had done back in the past, which was take everything, push it out in the river as quickly as possible, and now we have to treat it. So the senator is correct. The laudable goal of his bill is wonderful. And we want to all get to cleaner water faster. Yes, there was an overflow volume last year. This year, we upgraded the treatment plant to double its capacity from 70 to 140. So now we're going to capture again half of that back again. The city of Richmond has been at this program for approximately 20 years now. And we are making as much headway as we can. The bill that you all passed in 2020, the interim plan was due last July. We have given you that interim plan, and we are on track to comply with that interim plan by 2027. We're actually ahead of schedule on our final plan that's due to you in 24. We think we're in a good shape now to be able to present it to you for next General Assembly, because I think you're going to have me back up here asking you for $500 million in FY24 and $500 million in FY25. That's the only way I can get this done, is if I have state partnership and funding. I do have the ability right now to raise $150 million of city funds, and I will do those to match the $150 million that the Commonwealth has so graciously provided to us. But that's only $300 million of a $1.3 million program.
And when you raise the money, you do it through your water rates, sewer rates?
Yes, it'd be rate-based, based upon our borrowing potential and our wastewater enterprise fund. Yes, sir.
Okay. Questions either for Senator Stewart or the city? Joe?
Bob, thank you for your comments. I got first a couple of questions for you, Mr. Tydell. The last thing that you said is that you have the ability to raise $150 million to match what the state has already done. Well, you actually have that money banked and ready to go and earmarked already. Isn't that true?
We have the borrowing capacity to be able to borrow that money. We do not have it in the bank as we speak.
Any ARPA funds that are earmarked for it or could be earmarked for this CSO project?
The city ARPA funds in the first tranche were put towards the lead service line replacement to remove lead from our drinking water and also to address flooding issues within the city of Richmond. The combined sewer was not part of the first tranche.
And irrespective of what happens on this vote that's going to come up in a few moments, there's nothing stopping the city of Richmond from going to its two United States senators, Congressman McEachin, and saying, we have an emergency here in Richmond. It is as crucial a crisis as anything that we have ever had. Nothing would stop the city of Richmond from putting their efforts and time and energies into going to those legislators and saying, federal legislators, and saying, we need money.
Yes, sir, and we already have. We have not been successful yet, but we're not going to stop.
Further comment, Mr.
Senator Morrissey.
Right. You know, I taught history, and there's an old axiom that history repeats itself. And Senator Stewart did not give me this article. I got it myself through another legislator. In 2017, the city of Alexandria had earmarked to 2035, they were going to delay their CSO overflow site until 2035. And Senator Stewart in 2017 came in and said, nope, you have 3.5 years to do it, or I'm going to take back all of the state money. And people thought that he was being overbearing. But what they did instead is they compromised to 2025. And guess what? They have moved up that project by 14 years, and they got it done because of the pressure that was put on them. And at that point, one of the big points that was made by Senator Stewart was that in Orinoco Bay, they were dumping 11 million gallons of raw sewage a year. The senator is correct. There's 2 billion gallons of raw sewage. And I don't want to be indelicate about this, but one legislator said, it is like flushing your toilet and going into the James River and into our iconic bay. 2 billion. And if you don't move it up, then that's going to continue to happen. That's what I'm concerned about. And I can't think of, I thought that the senator was being understated the importance when he said it's a health emergency. So although I represent Richmond, I feel no pressure whatsoever in supporting the senator's bill. And I've got a vested interest. I admit, I'm biased. I'm on the James River every week during the summer with children. And I know exactly what he's talking about the fecal matter in there. And this has got to get the attention of the mayor and the city council like no other measure has gotten their attention. I'm going to support the bill because I think I think there will be some compromise, and I believe Senator Stewart, he will come back to you, and if you say, we've done everything we could, we've gotten McEachin and Warner and Kane on board, and they're doing this, we've come up with this additional amount of money, we're up to 500 million gallons of treating raw sewage, I know Senator Stewart will work with you. But I'm going to support the bill, and I hope the members of the committee will.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, may I just say one quick thing?
Yeah, let me get, yes, sir.
City of Alexandria has done a fine job. They have 4 outfalls to the Potomac River. Currently, the city of Richmond has 25.
25?
25. Scale of programs are not even comparable. They are hugely different. The city of Richmond's program is comparable to Washington, D.C.'s program. And while I really laud my colleagues in Alexandria for getting done what they've gotten done, our problem is much more difficult.
Okay.
Mr.
Appreciate
Chairman.
it. Senator Lewis and then Marston. Lewis.
Question for Senator Stewart. So, Richard, didn't you all negotiate this 2035 deal last year?
2 years ago.
Or 2 years ago, I'm sorry.
How do I say this delicately?
Delicately or thread the needle, one of the two.
I was able to get the support of some groups for that timeline, which frankly, I was surprised that those groups didn't push for a stricter timeline. But I was never satisfied with that. And then seeing the amount that went into the river in 2021, we just can't wait all that time. That's the problem.
I'm totally sympathetic and I get it, but I feel like that was negotiated then, and I don't know that they're doing anything. I don't think they're ignoring the problem, but I will say this to the city of Richmond. I'm going to vote against this today, but there's a paraphrase, an old famous Churchill quote, there should be nothing more attention-getting than having been shot at without result.
Okay, Senator Marsden.
Yeah, thank you. For the gentleman from Richmond, there's two parts to this solution I'm gathering here. One is your treatment capacity, which has been increased. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. This year we increased from 70 to 140.
To 140.
And we're going to increase again until 300.
And the other part of the problem is storage.
Yes, sir.
To be able to do that. Is there more treatment capacity that needs to be created as well as the storage capacity?
Yes, sir. The plan for the 2035 is going to be 5 tunnels. It's going to be increasing the wastewater capacity from 140 to 300 million gallons a day, and it will include the need for a large storage tank. And the tank is probably going to be a rock quarry or a rock quarry that we have to excavate.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Well, let me, before I get to Senator Favola, anybody else? No, Senator Favola.
Well, Mr. Chairman, Senator Stewart, and the representatives from the city of Richmond, I am very conflicted. I, of course, would like to see the James River cleaned up sooner rather than later. I think everybody would like that goal. But I'm trying to find a middle ground here. If we kept the dates that they currently are, did not accept Senator Stewart's accelerated timeframe and asked for a report back from the city of Richmond so we could evaluate if they're making adequate progress, would that be something you would view as a friendly amendment?
Mr. Chairman, I would not, because if we don't press, it will delay. And if we delay, more sewage goes into the river. It's just that simple. I'm not trying to be unreasonable. I'm not trying to push them into a goal they can't accomplish. This is very achievable, and I expect the state will help them with this as well. It is very achievable, and why would you want to put it off and let another 10 billion gallons of raw sewage go into the river and the citizens of Richmond have to live with that? That makes no sense.
Well, it's, Mr. Chairman,
Senator
it's not, that is not my desire. It's just, if in fact the city's going to be back in 2 years saying we need to change this, how is that expediting things when we could have them report, when we could do a better job of monitoring and still push them along? We are holding the purse strings in some respects.
If we clearly tell the city that they need to make this their top priority, I will promise you that they will.
Okay, why don't we do this? Do we have any other speakers either in favor? How about, let's start with in favor.
Oh, good.
Okay, Mr. Wheeler, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Andrew Wheeler, Secretary of Natural and Historic Resources, here on behalf of the governor. And I want to thank the chairman and the committee, sponsor, the patron of the legislation, to announce the governor's and our support of this legislation. As he announced yesterday at the joint session, he wants to ensure that we have no more waste flowing into the James River, and he also reaffirmed his support for cleaning up the Chesapeake Bay. We've been talking about the river itself and the people who use the river for recreational purposes, but we also have the problem with the Chesapeake Bay, and we are currently not on track to meet the 2025 WIP for the Chesapeake Bay. So we're going to have to do more as a state in order to reach the agreements that we have with the US EPA to reach the 2025 WIP. Speeding this up from 2035 to 2030 will go a long way to helping to clean up the bay and providing the support that we need for the bay.
Okay, I'm going to ask you an obvious question. Where are we going to find the money?
Well, one of the reasons why the governor asked me to take this role is to try to find additional federal resources across the board. We need to take a harder look at the bipartisan infrastructure bill that just passed the U.S. Congress a few months ago. There's additional resources there, and there are other programs. I helped the state of Indiana with some innovative financing to clean up a lot of their smaller cities, smaller and medium-sized cities, to access more federal funding. So there is definitely federal funding that I would help with the city. I know the city has done a lot so far, and we would stand with them to try to find additional resources at the federal level as well as the state level to try to get the James River cleaned up.
Senator Morrissey.
Good afternoon, Mr. Wheeler. The delta between the money that we have right now, which is $300 million, and what it's going to cost is about, I'm guesstimating, pretty close to $800 million.
Yes, that's my...
Be as candid with us as you can as to, and I know you have had a great deal of experience in finding that money in the federal treasury. What can what can this body expect is a reasonable amount to be able to get from the federal government, notwithstanding that the governor has said he wants to make it a top priority?
I can't give you a dollar figure today. We need to take a look at all the different programs that we believe that they're qualified for. When I was the administrator of the EPA, I found $220 million for the city of Newport News for their new sanitation program to clean up the bay. I found $202 million for the city of Baltimore for their waste treatment facility, also to clean up the bay. And I believe that's on, both of those are under the WIFIA program, which is a relatively new program at the agency. So there are some newer programs that I'm not sure if the city has applied for a WIFIA loan from the federal government or not, but I would work with the city as the secretary to try to find additional resources across the board.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Senator Morrissey.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to know, and perhaps you can ask, did the city make application for that additional money? Because that's exactly the type of pressure that the patron is talking about right now. Mr. Wheeler said that there's possible application. I'd like to know if they made that.
Well, why don't we do this? We've been at this for about almost an hour. I do have a question, why this has not been in the infrastructure bills. This seems to me like classic infrastructure, and we keep hearing about, we passed this infrastructure, well, where's the money? But Andrew, why don't you stand aside for a second? I got another yeah. Chris, go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman, members of the committee. This issue is one that, prior to working with the League of Conservation Voters, I'm actually pretty intimately familiar with, both first swimming in the Potomac when Alexander was in my backyard and working for a member for whom that issue was really close to home. I remember so many of these same conversations. I remember talking about the years and years of work that they'd done to reduce the footprint that was in the CSO to just that little fraction of Old Town. I remember some of the conversations about how this was something where there was a plan in place and they were really working to do it. But I also remember hearing that figure from Senator Stewart and sitting around in my chair going, there is no way that we can, that we can be environmentalists and not address this critical problem. There's simply no argument against making it a top priority. And it was an incredible catalyst for creativity back then, and I think now this has another opportunity to be that catalyst for creativity, and I'm hopeful that when I go out with my dogs and with my partner and hopefully my future children into the James, that we can do so without having to check to see whether or not there was a little bit of rain that made it unsafe to swim. Thank you.
Fair enough. Okay. Peggy.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, ma'am.
Members of the committee, Peggy Sanner, Chesapeake Bay Foundation. I was not intending to speak today, but when the Chesapeake Bay is mentioned, I can't resist. I want to first start off with thanking Senator Stewart for this effort, his effort in 2020 and several years before that in focusing the attention on the city of Alexandria. These are really important problems, and Senator Stewart has been a leadership in this work. It's certainly an effort that is helpful to meeting Chesapeake Bay goals. I do want to emphasize what I don't think has been quite clearly enough said. The city of Richmond has been working very hard on this work for many years. They have been operating under, developing a very important and innovative permit combining its water systems. They've upgraded the wastewater treatment plant. They've been engaging with citizens. The fact of the matter is, as Mr. Steidel mentioned, 25 outfalls is a very different matter from 4 outfalls. So all of that goes to say, this is important work. We support it entirely. We also support it, frankly, contingent upon the states recognizing that it will need to support this project going forward, not just this year, but going forward, and that it is, in my opinion, as a water advocate, unfair of the General Assembly to just say to Richmond, go do, if you don't, we're going to punish you. Richmond is working hard to meet these responsibilities, and we urge you to address that sincerely, consistently, and responsibly, both by supporting the CSO work, but also helping to support it. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Peggy. All right. Do we have anyone else who's here to testify in support of the bill?
For those attendees in the Zoom room who would like to speak in support of the bill, please raise your hand electronically now. Mr. Chair, there are no hands raised at this moment.
Okay, let's hear the other side of the story. Opponents?
For those who would like to speak in opposition of the bill, please raise your hand electronically now. Mr. Chair, at this moment, there are no hands raised.
Okay, look, we've been at this for a while, and we actually had a fairly lengthy hearing on this 2 years ago, so I think we're all familiar with this issue.
Mr. Chairman, move to report. Second.
Okay, I've got a motion to report and refer to finance, and
Second.
And I've got a second. Do I want to have any conversation on this bill?
Get killed.
Go ahead, Senator Suderline.
It is so rare that I get to be the wild-eyed environmentalist. It's just stunning to me.
I don't think he qualifies for that.
That this much raw sewage keeps going into the river year after year. I think the number I might have heard was 2 billion gallons. And it's just stunning to me that we would not take this action, especially after the great success we had with the Potomac.
All right, I'm going to take a little bit of chairman's prerogative and speak. I'm going to vote for this bill, and I voted for it 2 years ago. I voted for the Alexandria bills. I understand that 25 outfalls is a lot. I understand that Richmond was a city that was built out 200 years ago. I understand all of it. The bottom line is this is probably the #1 environmental issue in the state right now. And if we don't make it a priority, then we're going to have a hard time getting our federal partners to focus on it. And this is how we make it a priority, is by passing legislation. So, okay, clerk will open the roll.
Ayes 11, noes 4.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Bill passes 11-4, and we'll see you in finance. No. Okay, I've got 2 bills left. Barbara, I've got your Senate Bill 13, and I've got my Sunday hunting bill. Do you want to go ahead?
Senator Holland, please.
Oh,
Senator
Gonzalez, you have a bill? Okay, which number was that?
That's SB 272 for that.
Okay. Can I have a motion to pass by Senate Bill 272 for the day?
So moved.
Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, that leaves us 2 bills left. Barbara, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, my bill is a very straightforward bill, but first I would like to draw the attention of the committee to an amendment in the nature of a substitute and ask that you adopt that.
Okay, we have a motion on substitute. All in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, substitute is adopted. Lisa, please circulate that.
Mr. Chairman, it's been posted online.
Okay. And we've got Senate Bill 13, everybody.
Senate Bill 13. Mr. Chairman, what this does is it adds, on paragraph B, the paragraph in the original bill is now paragraph B1. B2 is the addition. And what it essentially says is that if a project is already underway, and this would be an efficiency project done under the performance contract, and they find they have to replace the roof, then the replacement of, determines that the replacement of more than 20% of the roof is necessary, they can go ahead and do that, and the contractor can proceed. The project still has to meet the performance efficiency standards. This applies to public buildings, any public building, local, state, school board owned. It's a technical, I would call it almost a technical change, because in 2017, for whatever reason, the bill excluded roofs. And now we want to add roofs back if more than 20% of the roof has to be replaced. So I've worked with a lot of the energy efficiency groups and also contractors that would be likely to be working on these projects. There may be some speakers, but that completes my presentation.
Okay, I just, do we have, first of all, Senator Stewart asked why is this here? Sean, do you have an answer on that?
I don't have an answer on that one.
Yeah, it's in 45.2.
Fix only what's the significance.
Mr. Chairman, I believe that it came here because it is in the energy titles of the code.
All right, there it is. Okay. We love it. Okay. Any witnesses in favor of the legislation come forward, please?
Good afternoon. My name is Chelsea Harnish. I'm the Executive Director of the Virginia Energy Efficiency Council. We would like to thank Senator Vola for bringing this bill on behalf of some of our members, some of the energy service companies that do the performance contracting on on public buildings here in the Commonwealth. Back in 2017, when this roof exemption was added, there really wasn't a lot of appetite for solar to be added to public buildings. But fast forward 5 years, and we are now seeing appetite for solar on public buildings, particularly on schools. But when that happens, because of the roof exemption, basically solar cannot be added to a building whose roof is older than 5 years. And so what's happening is that there have been a couple of instances where the locality needs to seek alternative financing for the solar and roof piece as they move forward with energy performance contracting, which could help with building retrofits, water conservation, and energy conservation. And it's not always feasible to mesh those two timelines together. So this is an opportunity for the locality to have the all of the measures financed through performance contracting, which is regulated by Virginia Department of Energy. So we have worked with roofing associations and with design consulting associations, and we don't believe that there is any opposition to the substitute language. Thank you.
Thank you. Question for the person there, or for anyone. If a neighboring jurisdiction, has a roofing contract that under Virginia law allows them to use that contract, can that be part of the I guess the decision process as to what roofer to use? In other words, can you use an existing contract from someplace else, or does everything have to be rebid?
No, the way performance contracting works is that you work with a single energy service company. There's about 15 of them that are vetted by the Virginia Department of Energy. So what happens is you put out saying, we want to do a performance contract. You have to actually do a walkthrough with all 15 of the companies. They do an energy audit to assess how much the energy savings that they can achieve for you on your particular project. So actually it needs to be building by building. building. There are instances where maybe the local government says, we want you to use a local contractor. This is a roof contractor that we've used in the past. But they follow procurement, the competitive bidding through for energy performance contracting.
For the subcontract.
For the subcontract, yeah.
Okay. Okay, Preston.
Preston Bryant on behalf of Schneider Electric, one of the energy service companies. We're helping bring this bill because in simple terms, and this is fixing a little problem, the last sentence in paragraph A says you can't do roof projects. What's happening if Fairfax City wants to do a solar project on City Hall, they pass that, they put it in their CIP, they appropriate it, and then then they get up there and they find out you got to replace the roof. Because of that last sentence, they can't replace the roof as part of this procurement. They can't even do a change order. So this fixes that and allows them to do the change order, allows them to procure roof work as part of this project, where as written, they can't.
Why was that roofing was exempted?
Initially, back in 2017, there was a concern. I forget why that statute was being amended, but the roofing contractors came in and were concerned that through cooperative procurement,
They were
which
gonna
was
get
your
bid
question,
out. Yes,
somebody
yes,
in
yes.
Roanoke might be doing a project in Northern Virginia, and they
Yeah.
thought that was abusing the cooperative procurement. So we have gone back to those
Okay.
folks the procurement advocates who are watching that, and they are on board with
Okay.
this, and they're satisfied.
All right. Senator Ruff.
I feel very uncomfortable that the contractors are not here to speak. I really believe that we ought to be first.
Why don't we do this? I really don't have we could pass it and just refer it to general laws.
Mr. Chairman?
All right. Why don't we do that? What we'll do is when we make a motion, we'll make a motion to report and refer it to general laws. It is in the energy code, but I do think it ought to be in general laws.
I would say, Mr. Chairman, in response to Senator Ruff's good question, we reached out to the Roofing Contracting Association. They were very much a part of the stakeholder group. They worked this over, they got consensus, and they are on board with this. There's no opposition to the legislation.
Yeah.
Sure.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
No. And Mr. Chairman, I would just note that in effect, this makes it easier for contractors because those that are managing this overall project, if they don't have the expertise to do a new roof, and the new roof is needed to meet the energy efficiency goal under this bill, they'd have to, of course, do an RFP, but they could hire a roofing contractor who, in fact, is an expert and able to put in a solar-ready roof or an energy-efficient roof. So this is an advantage to those general contractors who are in the middle of a project. And again, they have to meet that energy efficiency outcome.
Okay. Anybody else want to testify on this bill?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, keep
Chris.
it short and simple for this one. We support this bill because it'll allow local and state governments to access clean energy, save money, and use those savings to make key infrastructure investment. We're happy to support it.
Totally awesome. Okay.
It's a good bill, and I think we can pass it
Well, I think
and
we
take it
can.
to the floor.
Frank, what do you want to do?
Mr. Chairman, I like the bill, I don't have a problem with the bill, but I think that because the contractor community monitors general laws much more
Right.
closely than they do the ag, they ought to have a chance to look at it.
All right. I don't see any harm in just
Whatever.
reporting and referring it to general laws.
If that's the wish of the committee,
All right.
that's fine.
So we've got a motion and a second to report and refer the bill to general laws. Open the roll, please.
Ayes 12, no 0, 1 abstention.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, I've got my bill, so Marston will take over.
Oh, scary.
I could ask them to come.
Why it wasn't included when this bill originally was passed is beyond me. It's like a heart surgery, I want to do the heart surgery for it, but my work doesn't include.
Jeff, do you have a substitute?
Yeah, I have a substitute to distribute.
By the way,
Okay. All those in favor of accepting the substitute, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Substitute is before us. I'm assuming I'm not seeing hard copies come out, so it is on LIS.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, it's been posted.
It's not coming up as a substitute. Just showing the pre-copy.
Okay, if I might.
I don't see it coming up, it's just showing the pre-copy.
We got it? Okay, we're good to go. Chap, Senate Bill 8?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Acting Chair. This is basically the second part of the follow-on of the Sunday hunting bill that we passed, I think it's been about a half dozen years ago, which simply would allow Sunday hunting on public lands with all of the same restrictions that we have right now, such as you can't hunt within 200 yards of a place of worship or an accessory structure. The substitute also keeps in the restriction on hunting with dogs, so that will not be introduced, which is right now not permitted. So other than that, it's really kind of self-explanatory. I know we've had a huge discussion on Sunday hunting many years ago. I think it was 6 or 7 years ago, and we kind of crossed that bridge, and I think we're all still here. Understand
And that was private land.
That was on private land. This will be
this
public
adds
land. Public land, so really DWR, DGIF preserves, hunting grounds, areas like that.
Chap, would public lands be more or less likely to put churches and other?
Well, it would clearly be less likely because public lands tend to be groupings of several hundred acres, and they also tend to be uninhabited, so.
Thank you. Any questions from the panel?
And I do have somebody here from DWR, I hope. Yes, come on forward.
Mr. Brown, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
What do you have
Ryan
to tell
Brown,
us?
Director of DWR. We don't have a formal position on this bill yet either, but certainly happy to address any questions, give you any information about our experience with Sunday hunting since it passed in 2014 as to private land. So you were right on the mark.
Mr. Brown, do you have any information on the economic impact of Sunday hunting from years ago when we added private lands? Did that bring hunters to the Commonwealth who stayed in hotels, spent money at restaurants, bought supplies, things like that?
Well,
isn't that so? Isn't that
very difficult to.
Isn't that so?
Very difficult to give direct attributions to what may motivate somebody to come to the Commonwealth or not. But of course, the expansion of access, which is the number one reason cited for folks who don't engage in hunting as an obstacle, was a point of the 2014 effort. And in a bit of good news, I will tell you, whereas the national trend in hunting license sales has been downward for a couple decades now at the very least, we saw increases in public participation during the COVID era, and other states saw that drop off over the last year. But in fact, Virginia is holding constant at this point in time, so we're very encouraged by that. Now, I can tell you there's a lot of factors involved in that, and certainly the opportunity to hunt 7 days a week could play into it. I'd like to think that some of our creative licensing ideas over the past few years are beginning to pay some dividends as well. But things are moving in a positive direction at long last in that regard.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Other questions from the panel of Mr. Brown? Senator Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Ryan, do you read the substitute to just change it so that you can now Sunday hunt on public land? Have you seen the substitute?
I saw it briefly before the committee. I haven't looked at the real fully, but it's only a few sentences, and I interpret it as simply opening the possibility for public landowners to allow hunting as well. With the private land ownership and similar with this, it's ultimately up to the landowner. We get questions from time to time on the public lands question of, does this mean our local park or something like that? And it's no, the landowner has to make the determination. So in the case of my agency, we own about 230,000 acres of really wonderful wildlife management areas that I hope you guys check out for every reason that you could possibly want to go to them, but they're paid for by sportsmen and sportswomen's dollars. We're also very fortunate in the Commonwealth to have a very large national forest area, as you're well familiar, out in Senator Hanger and some of the other members' districts that's available to hunting 6 days a week right now. Approximately 40% of our hunters engage in hunting on public lands at one time or another, and so we do hear from time to time from them that, hey, you know, everybody else gets to hunt 7 days a week. What about us? And the answer is, you know, it's up to you folks, but it would also be up to those landowners to determine whether or not they want to allow hunting on Sundays.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Stewart.
And so that gets to my question. If this opens it up to public land, is that, I guess, everybody knows I don't like Sunday hunting. I don't allow it on my land. I don't do it. I just don't believe in it because I think everything should have a day of rest, including the animals, because I do believe animals have souls. Anyway. Are there competing interests there? That's what I'm concerned about on your management. But I'm trying to support my friend because he supported me. Are there competing interests on that public land that you're talking about?
Certainly.
Or is it just for hunting?
No, there are a multitude of different purposes to which public land is put, and there are other users who like to use those lands, and for all I know, there may be some folks in the room who can speak more to that. But we also hear that comment or that question about what about
That's my
these
question.
users.
If you allow hunting on public land on Sunday, are you now going to exclude other citizens from being able to use it from walking or horseback? I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah, I think what I can offer in response to that is I will say that, you know, for whatever perceptions, we don't experience a great degree of user conflict on public lands the other 6 days a week. Now, I can't say that's not because some folks aren't waiting until Sunday to go out and bird watch or what have you, and I wouldn't discount anybody's points that way, but we don't experience a lot of conflict. And I'd also say not all lands are created equal. If you take our wildlife management areas, for instance, and then certainly we welcome all users to those, and all sorts of folks do use them, but who are the primary users? They're the hunters, you know. Some of DCR's lands, things of that nature, may be different, and they'd have different user groups and different considerations to keep in mind.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Senator
Chair.
Hosby.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I think I have reached a point of agreement with Senator Stewart. I too believe that animals have souls and deserve a day of rest. But apart from that, Senator Peterson, you know, I've received a lot of emails from constituents who are asking that we reserve Sunday free from hunting so that they can enjoy these lands and so that they can take recreational activities without concern for themselves and their families should there be hunting. So I did not receive any constituent support for this, so I just wanted to share that I will be not voting in support of the bill.
Well, I appreciate that, and all I can tell you is I have a hunting license in Maryland, and they have hunting 7 days a week, and no one's going back there. You know, in fact, I just went goose hunting there a couple weeks ago. I understand the tensions and the issue, and I like to walk and go. I even go running sometimes in Rappahannock Wildlife Management Area. But at the end of the day, you know, I'd like to see more people participate in hunting. I think it's a great American tradition, and I just think this helps open it up. So,
Okay. If there are no other questions, how about from our virtual supporters? Is there anyone in the? We have Brantley Tyndale. Could you, Brantley, could you unmute and give us your testimony?
Yeah, I am here actually to oppose, so I don't want to speak in the wrong order.
Well, you may be the only one, so
Okay.
go ahead
All
and
right.
give us your negative feedback.
Thanks very much, and I think it may be sort of moderate, but I'm Brantley Tyndale with Virginia Bicycling Federation. Thanks for the opportunity to share some concerns about interplay between hunting and outdoor recreation, in hopes that we can find some common ground. To start, we're not opposed with hunting or hunters. I'm a lifelong hiker and bicyclist, though, and I've occasionally been startled by hunters shooting too close to trails when I've been out on public lands. You don't always get to see them before you hear it, and it can be startling. You might get a sense that you can feel a bullet in the air. Whether it's true or not, I don't know, but you can certainly feel it. And that experience can be terrifying and alienating to outdoor recreationalists of all ages and abilities. The Sunday prohibition, as it is on the books, has allowed for at least one day a week when toddlers and novices can hike and bike outdoors without proximity to gunfire. We could support this bill if it started with the wildlife management areas, the 250-ish thousand acres, because those are not as prominently used for outdoor recreation. They're maybe for bird watching and other outdoor uses for sure. But as far as the biking and hiking community, they're a little less favored. And if this were to include more land in the wildlife management area, we would strongly encourage including some sort of prohibition about proximity to marked trails, up to and including the Appalachian Trail, though I don't speak for that organization. When including our national forests, George Washington and Jefferson National Forests, we would encourage a 150-yard buffer that specifically names marked trails. The 150-yard buffer is consistent with the U.S. Forest Service regulations, which prohibit shooting near recreation areas, and I quote, areas where people are expected. That's what the regulation says. It doesn't say trails or anything like that. But unfortunately, hunters don't always consider trails to meet that description and shoot either near, across, or directly from trails in our national forests. And there was a little bit of discussion about hunting licenses. There are about 250,000 licenses in Virginia, which is about 3% of the population, and over a long-term trend has been steadily decreasing. And recreation, however, has continually increased for quite a number of years and really hit a bump during the pandemic. Virginia state parks have reported a 13% increase, up to 8 million users in 2020. And Garmin, which has a big data set, estimates an increase of 49% in gravel cycling, 19% in hiking, 11% in trail running, and 37% in walking. That's pretty unprecedented, and it represents millions of people, many of whom are not from Virginia as well, to access our great public lands. So I consider either starting with wildlife management areas or naming trails as an excluded barrier. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was very informative, Mr. Tyndall. How about Cyrus Baird? Could you please unmute yourself and give us your testimony? I'm assuming you're in support.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Senator Marsden. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. And thank you, Senator Peterson, for introducing and supporting this much needed legislation to make access and opportunity for sportsmen and women of the Commonwealth more equitable. My name is Cyrus Baird, and I'm the Senior Director of Government Affairs for Delta Waterfowl, North America's largest organization dedicated solely to ducks and duck hunters. I also happen to be a resident and avid hunter here in the Commonwealth. As many of you know, sportsmen and women pay for the vast majority of state-based conservation funding for the Department of Wildlife Resources through the sale of hunting licenses and excise taxes placed on firearms and ammunition. DWR also purchases and manages wildlife management areas with funds derived directly from sportsmen and women. However, we continue to be the only user group that is still prohibited from accessing these lands on Sundays, while similar restrictions for private land hunters were repealed in 2014. This legislation would allow sportsmen and women who aren't afforded the opportunity to recreate Monday through Friday due to busy work schedules, another day on the weekend to enjoy our natural resources. We were very encouraged to see that the board of the Department of Wildlife Resources signaled their support for the concept of this legislation of expanding hunting opportunities on lands that they own and manage on Sundays through a resolution that they passed overwhelmingly late last fall. We look forward to working with this committee and the rest of the General Assembly to move this legislation forward towards creating more equitable access for all hunters 7 days a week. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, Isaac Weitz, who, if you could unmute yourself and give us your testimony.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and the members of the committee. I'd also like to thank Senator Peterson for bringing this bill forward. I represent the board of the Capital Region chapter for Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. We are an organization that focuses on public lands and access for hunters and anglers all over the United States. I'm a resident of the Commonwealth, avid hunter myself, and I'm here to represent the over 700 members that our organization has within Virginia. Hunters and anglers that enjoy all of the public lands 6 days of the week, we would like to see that 7 days of the week. I think Cyrus from Delta Waterfowl did a really good job of pointing to the equity part of this bill. There's plenty of individuals in the Commonwealth that work really hard, Monday through Friday, maybe even Monday through Saturday. Sunday might be their only day to enjoy, their passion of pursuing hunting. And so we would like to have them have access to these lands and be able to, enjoy the lands that we all collectively own and we all collectively, have access to as citizens of not only the Commonwealth, but of the United States. So Backcountry Hunters and Anglers is in full support of this bill, and we thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Next, we have John Kolklisher.
Thank you, sir. John Kolklisher. I'm with the Congressional Sportsmen's Foundation. I'm going to express my strong support for legislation patroned by Senator Peterson, and I am a constituent of Senator Hashmi. I won't get into all the reasons for Sunday hunting that Cyrus elucidated very well, but I'd just like to point out that this is pretty much the only thing on the books in the Commonwealth that discriminates against one recreational user group on public lands. This is about access. This is about parity. This is about equal treatment under the law. This is 2022. We're talking about righting the wrongs of history and allowing everybody to access public land that they pay for. Hunters are taxpayers. Hunters pay for the purchase and management of wildlife management areas with their hunting licenses and excise taxes on firearms and other related equipment. Hunters pay stamps to hunt national forests, and hunters pay stamps to hunt in state forests. So, safety concerns, I appreciate that from other recreational user groups. However, I think that hunters can get along with every other recreational user group and allay those fears by working together. Sunday hunting on public lands is permitted, and more than 40 states across the country, Virginia and South Carolina are the only two southern states with the existing prohibitions. And as North Carolina opened up 1.6 million acres of public land to Sunday hunting last year. So thank you for considering my comments, and I would encourage you to support this legislation.
Thank you very much. All right. I think that concludes things. Chap, you want to close it out?
One conclusion remark, and I think one of the things I don't want people to get confused, public land will still be controlled by the owner. So federal lands and federal parks will still be controlled by owners.
Yeah. Federal lands will still be controlled by the federal government. You can't go out and hunt on federal lands that's controlled by federal policy. And same way, either regional parks or local parks will be controlled by the owner. So we're really talking about state lands, which is to say DGIF or DWR owned land. So appreciate your support. Thanks.
Thank you. All right. We operate on a motion. Do we have one? We have a motion and a second to report. Could you open the rolls, please?
Ayes 9, noes 4, 2 abstentions.
Ayes 9, noes 4, 2 abstentions. The bill reports.
Okay. I think that's everything we have on the dock. Does any member have a bill that they had on the docket? No? Okay. I'll take a motion to adjourn. All right. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
I didn't get there
We're
yet, 'cause
adjourned.
you gotta have to dodge the bullets. That's my standing.